This is You and the Law on AM 650. Now back to the show.
Welcome back to You and the Law. I'm reading from the website. Remember I said you may want to check out murphybattista.com? Well, on one spot on the website, you'll see we represent injured people in complex personal injury and insurance cases. We are a leading personal injury law firm serving Western Canada. The we, of course, is Murphy Battista, LLP. The principals are in studio, Joe Murphy and Joe Battista, both QCs. Well, we were talking before the break and about the firm and the fact that you and the factors that brought you together and made you decide to go ahead with a personal injury law practice. Now let's talk about some specifics here. We were talking about ICBC, private versus public. We don't get that debate in BC as they would in other provinces where they don't even have the public option and everybody's at the mercy of private insurance. Here we have the hybrid. But as part of the ICBC policy, Joe Murphy, we have something called Underinsured Motorist Protection. Now, you and I have touched on this in previous episodes of You and the Law, but it's something that really everybody needs to think about. Talk to us about what does this thing mean? It's $25 a year. It's a box you can tick on your insurance form. I know because I did it last year based on the recommendations of one Joe Murphy.
Good. Sterling, the most insurance you can buy from ICBC is $5 million liability insurance.
Okay.
And I believe everyone should have that $5 million coverage. But if I have $5 million coverage and I'm run into by a fellow, some kid who's bought his first vehicle who's got $200,000 coverage, and I'm badly hurt, I sue him and he has no assets and $200,000. So there's a problem. So what ICBC offers today is everyone who buys insurance from them gets what's called $1 million underinsured motorist protection coverage.
Right, that's standard, isn't it?
So if this kid runs into me, there's a total of $1 million of insurance coverages available. ICBC tops up the insurance monies. For $25 a year, I can buy for myself and my family a second $1 million, so that the amount of insurance available for me or any of my family members if they're hurt is a total of $2 million.
Okay.
And again, it's coverage you buy to protect you, yourself and your family. It's the wisest money people will ever spend. Some people, unfortunately, think that their coverage is equivalent to what their third-party liability coverage is. And when first came in the 1980s, that's what it was. You paid $12, and whatever your third-party liability coverage was, that's what your coverage was.
What's the difference between and third-party liability?
Third-party liability is the coverage I have in my car, so if my car runs over someone or hits someone,
right,
and they sue me, that's the amount of coverage ICBC provides for the claims.
Okay.
And people used to think $1 million was enough. The reality is if someone is badly hurt or if a number of people are badly hurt, you need lots of coverage. And it's so wise, I believe, to buy the $5 million third-party liability coverage. It doesn't cost a lot, but it provides coverage. And it provides coverage to me as a driver. It also provides coverage to me as the owner of the car.
So you're suggesting, first and foremost, tick that box as you can do on your ownership form. That's the $25 that will get you from $1 to $2 million.
For sure.
You're suggesting that in real dollar terms in 2013, that may not be enough. So what would the tab be to go from 2 to 5?
ICBC won't sell you more than $2 million in coverage.
Oh, okay.
So if you want
you have to
more,
go to a private insurer.
If you
then
want more, there are some homeowner insurance policies that sell additional you have to go to I don't know of anyone but homeowners who will sell you more than the $2 million offered by ICBC.
Interesting. Now, Joe Battista, both Joes from the firm carry a very high amount of personal underinsured motorist protection. You're in the personal injury business. I'm not surprised by this, but still, why do you carry as much as you do?
Well, again, it's to protect myself. At this stage in life, you've accumulated some assets, and what the public has to understand is that ICBC is, most cases are ICBC. ICBC will pay up to the limits of coverage. So if the vehicle has $2 million coverage and the claim is worth $3 million, ICBC will pay their $2 million, but you can be personally liable for that extra $1 million.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if it's like Joe says, it's a teenager with his first car, he probably will never get it. But, you know, I have a house, I have assets, and I would be vulnerable if I had the misfortune to do that. So
because they could go after your
exactly.
assets. I see.
Yeah. So although cases of $7 and $8 million are rare, they do happen. And when my son started driving my car at age 16, I thought it would be a wise move. And not that he's a bad driver, but you just never know with a young driver. And again, as the owner of the car, I'm responsible, I'm liable. So I thought that it's money well spent to protect myself in those cases.
And as long as we're on the car insurance and that element of the conversation at the moment, we are practically a border community. It's very common for people from Vancouver to jump in the car and blast down to Seattle for a football game or a baseball game or a weekend of shopping. And there are lots of Washington license plates in our midst all the time. Joe Murphy, talk to us about the difference between British Columbia and Washington State when it comes to insurance, minimum mandatory insurance coverage. Theirs is a lot lower than ours.
They have different coverage totally, but the minimum coverage available in Washington State, the minimum you have to have, I believe, is sort of $25,000 to $30,000.
Wow.
The most you can usually buy in the States, and I know this because I bought insurance in California, the most you can get is $500,000 or $1 million. In spite of the fact that the cases down there are bigger, the amount of insurance available is less.
So, Joe Battista, I guess we need to remember that. We see those American plates, then these people don't have the same insurance coverage we do.
You know, it's a timely question, Sterling, because just on Saturday, I met a new client from North Vancouver, was injured in Oregon, and they were told, the fellow that was liable for the accident says, well, I've got $15,000 insurance. So Oregon is even less than Washington. This person has $15,000 third-party liability insurance in Oregon.
And that's it.
And that's it.
And so suppose now this client that you met is injured and may suffer some kind of permanent disability or inability to work at the pace that they had been accustomed to. In other words, they will be from this day forward unable to provide for themselves as they were before they left on their Oregon vacation. This guy's got $15,000 in car insurance. How does the client sue and expect damages that may assist in helping them get on with their life?
Okay. Well, the Oregon insurer has already tendered the $15,000. This woman's quite seriously injured. They know that it's worth well over the $15,000. They've tendered the $15,000.
Oh, so they've already paid up.
Well, they've offered it. But
okay.
They haven't accepted it yet. And then the UMP will kick in. UMP covers them in the continental United States as well.
So if you're a British Columbia driver with your underinsured motorist protection and you're in a foreign country, as in America, you're covered still.
Just in the U.S.
Just in the U.S.
Just in the U.S. and Canada.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, that's comforting, though.
It is, yeah. So she is going to have to rely on her UMP for the rest of her claim.
Interesting. Now, let me just stop you there, because here you are already getting to a point in personal injury law that I really wanted to spend some time on with you two pros, and that's the whole matter of settling. If you're injured, you have a claim, there's some physical and medical evidence of real damage. And so the insurance company recognizes that, yes, you've been hurt and we'd like to offer you this much. And it seems like a pretty healthy check. Is it wise, Joe Murphy, to always say, no, thanks, I'll check with my lawyer first? And is the human tendency to go, gosh, that's a sizable-looking piece of change, I think I'll take that?
Sterling, I'm going to answer that by telling you how common it is for us to get called. Joe gets calls, I get calls, the other lawyers in the firm gets calls. And someone will be saying, listen, I was in an accident, my neck and back were sore for 3 months, 6 months. ICBC's offered me $5,000. What should I do?
Right.
If we think the offer is in the ballpark, we'll say to those people, go back to ICBC, tell them you want 10. You know, if you can settle for 8, that's good. You don't need to hire a lawyer. You don't need us.
Okay.
So it's only when we see a case where the amount being offered is a fraction of what the claim is worth that we say to the people, listen, we can help you, come in and we'll sit down and talk.
Right.
But quite often we say to people, listen, they're in the ballpark, continue dealing with them, use the threat of hiring a lawyer to get them to increase
Possibly
their number.
sweeten it a little bit,
Yeah,
right.
but you don't need us. Do it yourself, and you're not paying any legal fees. The money goes right into your jeans.
Right, but Joe Battista, you and Mr. Murphy here get a lot of calls from people just out of the blue going, well, I've been offered this, should I take it or not? At least those people are smart enough to ask a lawyer before signing on a dotted line.
Yeah, and we give anyone a free initial consultation to come in and spend an hour with us and just talk about their case. The only caveat on those offers is that you want to make sure that your injuries are either recovered or you're pretty close to recovering, and your doctor's given you a pretty good prognosis. You don't want to rush in and if you're still having problems. So, like Joe said, we a lot of times just tell people that they don't need us.
Right.
You know, I think there's this perception that we give self-serving answers. Of course, you need a lawyer, but you don't always need a lawyer. And if we can't add value to the claim, we tell people. So, like I said, many take advantage of the free initial consultation, come in and talk to us, and
sure.
then they feel better and they understand, and maybe in a year's time they say, you know what, my neck got a lot worse than I thought. I'd like to come back, and yeah, we take them on at that point.
So there is those, you've just mentioned a time frame of 1 year. You're in an accident, the initial reaction physically is a little discomfort, but not a lot. There's a settlement offer that is negotiated, and you accept it. And then a year later, you come back and, gosh, you know, that accident I had a year ago, I've been going downhill ever since, but not noticeably. It's taken a year to notice that I'm really in a lot worse shape than I thought I would be a year after being in that accident, Joe Murphy. So what sort of statute of limitations, I know I'm using an American term, but what kind of time limit is there on, and you accepted a check, so are you out of business in terms of going back and going, no, wait a second there, that wasn't nearly enough. I'm really a lot more messed up than I thought.
Sterling, it's possible but difficult to set aside a settlement. And as a result of that, people should wait until they've fully recovered and they've gone back to all their normal activities before settling.
Oh.
ICBC, or the insurance company, wants to settle as early as possible.
Sure.
Because the reality is the earlier you settle, the less the insurance company will have to pay out.
So, and once you settle, you've pretty much written yourself out of the script,
It's
right?
possible but difficult to set aside a settlement.
Interesting. So again, another take-home lesson here, friends. If you're involved in any kind of accident in which you are injured, and which lawyers and ICBC and paperwork starts flying back and forth, and you're encouraged to accept a settlement, make sure, according to our friends from Murphy Battista, make sure you're healthy before you accept a settlement, because otherwise you may end up settling for something a lot less, Joe Battista, than you perhaps deserve based on the medical reality.
Yes, either you've recovered 100% or you've what we call is plateaued, is that you've reached a point and you know you're going to stay at that point, and then at least you can quantify what the claim is worth based on that level of recovery. You don't always recover 100%, but we're either looking for a full recovery or someone who has plateaued, and the doctors say, yes, you're not going to get any worse.
Right, but this is as good as it gets.
Yeah, and then again, you can put a value on a case on that basis. But you want one of those two things to happen, either total recovery or some type of plateau.
So again, when in doubt, consult a lawyer. Our friends Joe Murphy and Joe Battista have already pointed out a couple of times in this conversation that, for example, with their firm, if you are in doubt, if you've been in an accident, if you've been messed up in an accident, physically bashed around, and you're not 100%, and they're being offered a settlement, for goodness sake, talk to a lawyer first. If you don't need one, the guys at Murphy Battista will say you don't need a lawyer, but it's going to give you an awful lot more peace of mind going forward, knowing that this is as good as you're going to get out of this situation, or perhaps, no, we're going to have to go to war here because the insurance company isn't even close, right?
Exactly.
All right.
Sterling, there's another scenario that's fairly common. If I am in an accident and I have a fracture, some bone's broken,
Yeah.
and that fracture extends into the joint, or the joint's dislocated in the accident, there's a good chance that 15 or 20 or 25 years down the road, that joint's going to become arthritic.
Absolutely.
There's a possibility they'll need joint replacement. There's all those things. The doctor, in advising a patient, will say, listen, you've done well, you're fine. So really you need to say to the doctor, what's the long-term outlook?
Right.
What's likely to happen, what's possibly going to happen. So with the more serious injuries, it's even more important that people go and talk to a lawyer, because the long-term outlook or the evidence of the long-term outlook has to be developed. Someone has to ask the doctor, what are the chances of arthritis, and what are the chances that there'll be a joint replacement?
Well, again, this is why it's so good to have you people on the program, on the radio, dispensing this kind of really important information. Not many of us, Joe, know this.
Yeah.
You know, they're just we just got bashed up in a car accident. We got a whole lot on our plate all of a sudden, and a lot of details just skip right by you, don't they? Our guests are Joe Murphy and Joe Battista. The firm is Murphy Battista LLP, online at murphybattista.com. Lots more ahead on this episode of You and the Law on AM 650.
There's more of the show still ahead. This is You and the Law on AM 650.